How's it going, everybody? You know who it is. Mosey Designer here, and it's been a while since I did a video for the Level Design Deep Dive series. Quite a few people really enjoyed the episode on Facing Worlds, so thank you very much for that. Before I get into this episode, I just want to mention that those of you who do sub and support the channel, thank you very much. However, a lot of views do not come from subs. If you do like the content, please take a second and hit that sub button. It only takes a second and you won't miss out on new videos. So go ahead and do that. So anyways, back on topic. In the vein of Facing Worlds, today's episode is looking at another iconic multiplayer level that kind of sets the rules for CTF gameplay. That map is Two Fort from Team Fortress. The premise of Two Fort is very simple. It's two bases connected via a bridge in the middle. That's it. This design has been mirrored in several games with different spins to the concept, but the core of two bases connected via a straightforward path is a tried and true design that works. In fact, if you think about it, Facing Worlds, which I covered in the last episode of World Design Deep Dive, is a two-fort concept. There are so many maps out there that follow this two-fort principle. I can't name them all, but when you see it, you know it. So for today's episode, let's take a look at the roots of Two Fort from Team Fortress Classic and the evolution to Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress first appeared on the gaming scene back with Quake in 1996 as a mod, but a few years down the road in April of 1999, Team Fortress made its debut as a mod for Half-Life. Back in the day, Team Fortress was a great multiplayer addition to Half-Life, along with the likes of Counter-Strike and Action Half-Life. In total, the game had 3 modes: Capture the Flag, Control Point, and VIP. In terms of CTF maps, there are a total of 5 launch maps: The Well, Crossover, Casbah, Badlands, and Two Fort. Even with the original roots of the game, it still had the 9 classes that we have today in Team Fortress 2, which include the Scout, Sniper, Soldier, Demoman, Medic, Heavy, Pyro, Spy, and the Engineer. And just like with Team Fortress 2, each class brought their own unique playstyle, loadouts, and abilities to coordinate attack and defense scenarios on a given CTF map or other map the game had to offer. So let's take a closer look at the map itself from Team Fortress Classic. Here is a top-down image of Two Fort. From this view, you can see that the blue and red bases are an XY flip of each other, with the center being the connecting tissue between both bases. The symmetry keeps it fair and balanced for both teams. In comparison, here is a top-down image of Two Fort from Team Fortress 2. This is also an XY flip, but a thing to note is that the red and blue bases have some differences, which are kind of hard to spot in the top-down, but are easily noticed when playing inside the level. Of course, there's the obvious difference of visual overhaul and more level landmarks, but that's just the easiest thing to notice. There's a lot more to it than that. Hopefully my editing skills are up to par, and I'll try to edit this video so I can discuss the same segments of Two Fort alongside Team Fortress Classic and Team Fortress 2. So let's begin by looking at Two Fort in Team Fortress Classic. For no reason in particular, I spawned as a blue sniper. Upon spawning in one of 3 respawn zones of Two Fort, you come across the resupply room. Here, you can find multiple backpack pickups for ammo, armor, and health. In this resupply room, there are 2 doors, which create a one-way exit and entrance. I believe this is done to counter spawn camping, or to control the flow into the space. It does feel a bit counterintuitive, but the functionality works to some degree. The exit door of the resupply room is the one with a light above it, so it has a visual cue which way to go from spawn. Once outside the spawn area, you come to what I call the branching paths room. on the right side of the spawn, you can see the path that leads to the basement flag room. At the far end is a drop down to the lower level, and on the right wall there's a door, which also leads to the basement area. And finally, on the left, is the path to the infamous battlements of Two Fort. From here, many sniper battles have happened, and snipers have a great visibility to control their side of the level and have eyes on the bridge, the opposing base lower doors, and the respective battlements. And this position doesn't only work for snipers, pretty much every class can take advantage of this upper level position. Now let's take a look at the same path in Team Fortress 2. From the same spawn resupply room, the biggest difference is in lighting, and a lot of visual differences as well. Again, this difference is because of a technology gap and time gap between Team Fortress Classic and Team Fortress 2. Aside from the obvious, there are differences that can be seen. The first one is the supply closet, which removes the need for level pickups of backpacks, which were an element of the game design of Team Fortress Classic. Here, the supply closet removes the need for multiple level pickups and adds a single point for all classes to get their health and ammo. Perhaps the biggest difference of this part in Team Fortress 2 is the exit. It's now a big door that works both ways, and this adds an element of simplification compared to the one-way doors of Team Fortress Classic. From this point on, the layout is pretty much the same, with a path to the flag room basement area on the right, the drop down in the front, a second path on the wall to the right, and the path to the battlements on the left. Once again, no need to state the obvious. The skybox is a lot more vibrant and has a lot more detail this time around in Team Fortress 2. But from the battlements, we see another big difference between Team Fortress Classic and Team Fortress 2, and that is the bridge has a roof on it. Not only does this work as a more iconic visual landmark, but it serves a level design purpose as well. The sniper or any other class still has plenty of visibility to most of the opposing base. However, the roof now blocks line of sight to either lower doors depending on which side of the battlements a player stands on, and it gives the attacking team some breathing room pushing out of their base. From dead center, which is no longer the flag capture point like it is in Team Fortress Classic, the sniper or any other class can see everything, but the bridge still has shot protection with the roof asset. In either case, the attacking team still has some sense of cover pushing towards the enemy base compared to the totally open design of Team Fortress Classic. So let's continue our layout walkthrough by going back to Team Fortress Classic and continuing where we left off. Moving from the battlements towards the other side of the level is the other resupply room, which is the second of three. Like the other spawn and resupply areas, it has one-way access so the other team cannot enter. Inside, there's more health, ammo, and armor kit. If a player spawns here at the start of the match, or at respawn after dying in combat, they have two choices to move forward. They can go to the right and get to the battlements, or go straight, which leads to a drop down to the lower level. My only gripe here, and I get that it's meant to call the path out for the player, but being that I'm in the blue base, the light shouldn't be red. It should be blue. Bit nitpicky on my part, but it does point out which way to go nonetheless for the player. Taking the drop down to the lower path leads players to a 90-degree hallway with a choice to go left or right. Now let's examine the path in Team Fortress 2. And from the beginning, the thing that seems different is the landing area between the resupply door and the battlements seems a bit larger in terms of level metrics, giving the player more space to move around. Inside the resupply room, it follows the same design language that is in Team Fortress 2, where there's a supply closet instead of multiple pickups. The spawn area is behind the glass doors and provides visibility to see your teammates coming back into the fight, compared to the solid door that does not open in Team Fortress Classic. And likewise in Team Fortress 2, this door does not open, it's one way, but it does give you visibility to see who is spawning back into the fight. The split path choice is the same, but there is a subtle change. Even though the drop-down hallway is at the same distance away from the player's spawn, the parallel door frames in the middle of the room create a better sense of composition to the space, and it kind of splits the room in half perfectly, with a door frame going to the battlements and a door frame going to the drop-down. Taking the drop-down puts players in the exact same 90-degree hallway, but again there's more visual flair to the space, with some hubcaps on the left and a poster on the right. This helps players to create a basic mental landmark of which way to go in terms of left or right based on two small visual cues. From the drop-down in Team Fortress Classic, if we follow the path on the left, it leads to the ramp access space. From here, the player has three options: the path on the right, which loops back towards the base exit, a ramp, which leads towards the team spawn and the battlements, and the second ramp on the left, which goes up and loops back around to the upper catwalk, taking players to the basement level where the flag is located. A thing to note is that the catwalk crossing this room does block line of sight to the door that leads to the basement. In my opinion, the sightline blocker is not done in a good way, as it really takes away from highlighting the critical path to the objective. Additionally, the ramp closer to the player is solid, which does block some visibility, making it hard to see if anyone is coming up or down the ramp. Mirroring the same path to the ramp room in Team Fortress 2, things are quite different. First off, the space is more open, and the design of the space makes it feel less claustrophobic. Again, a benefit of the redesign of the level. But the skybox and the landmarks do help make this area feel more memorable than before. The biggest change, though, is the removal of the center catwalk. If it was still there, it would have killed the visual view of the skybox. Without the catwalk, the flow is also quicker too, to the flag room entrance above. One thing to note is that the stairs on both left and right are no longer solid. They're semi-solid, allowing players to see who is going up and down the stairs. With the center catwalk gone, it really does allow the basement door to be spotlighted or highlighted, and the visual direction of the barn gives a landmark meaning to why the door is placed where it is. If the player follows the path to the door, they now have to make a much sharper 90-degree turn to the right. It's faster than the catwalk, but in doing so, it puts the players back away from the spawn area. So if an opposing player was making a push, the chances that they could get shot in the back are higher because their back is towards the defensive team who have their spawn room right next door. In Team Fortress Classic, taking the door to the basement area, it's a one-way path, with an elevator that only works for the defending team. An attacking player can drop down, but they only have one way out, which I will showcase here in a bit. As a defensive design mechanic, this works and commits the attacking team to the flag area. And in the basement, there's a third resupply area, but this is not a spawn area. Players are only allowed to restock their health and ammo, but no one spawns at this position. Moving out of this lower resupply area, there's a large sightline blocking wall with directions to different parts of the base. In Team Fortress 2, this area is very different. The elevator is gone, and a stairway has been added that works both ways. This is no longer a one-way defensive path. With the addition of the stairs, this allows an attacking player to backpedal really quickly if things are too hot in this direction, without being forced to commit to this space. Not to say the elevator of Team Fortress Classic was bad, but it did serve a level design purpose to create a defensive position. Like the original layout, at the bottom of the stairs, there is a resupply room, but again, no player spawns. Again, there's another change. Coming out of the resupply room in Team Fortress 2, the map directions are gone, and the wall size is smaller, which allows better visibility to the stairs on the left and the flag room on the right. As I mentioned earlier, the elevator is a one-way path. So if an attacking player does commit to the flag room this way, their only way out is an exit at the far end of the hall. This exit does have a very dimly lit exit sign. Kind of hard to see, but it works. Inside of the basement area, there's a wall that has more directions which way to go in case you get lost. As for the flag room itself, there are two ways into it, one right in front of the player and one right behind them. The one behind the player actually fits in ideal flow if an attacking player comes from the other entrance of the basement. But for level defense, this little corner serves as a great hiding spot to catch incoming attacking players from either path into the basement. Following the signs to the flag room leads to the objective, which is sitting in the corner of the room, to be defended or taken away. Once a flag is taken, the flow of the room guides players to that hiding corner as a 90-degree turn, which pushes players towards the proper exit of the basement. Following this path, the exit of the basement leads players towards the branching path room above. From here, they can go to the right where there's another drop down, or go to the left to escape via the battlements. In Team Fortress 2, the basement has a very similar room design, but the lighting and architecture make this area more memorable for players to again help build their mental map of the level. The dim-lit exterior is brighter, and players can see a bit of the sign which reads Battlements. Overall, the visual redesign of the space is done quite well, which in turn doesn't require the signage on the wall. In fact, a lot of TF2 maps, not just 2Fort, do a great job with visual landmarks to help players build the mental map of the space. And again, not to dock on Team Fortress Classic, but the design of the times probably could not do such things given memory budgets and whatnot. The rest of the layout is pretty much the same, with the U-turn hidey hole and the direct path to the flag room on the right. There's just a lot more visual differences with expanded implied spaces to build the visual narrative of the space. Though now having the stairs does give the attacking team a second way out, even though the flow is counterintuitive to the space to make a U-turn, but it does work to make an escape compared to the one-way elevator of Team Fortress Classic. But ideally, like Team Fortress Classic, the proper directed flow leads players towards the ramped hallway that puts them back into the branching path room, with the same options to drop down or book it to the battlements. In Team Fortress Classic, assume I wanted to make a push to the opposing team base from the battlements. Well, one can easily drop down, but fall damage is taken. If successful, and one makes it across the bridge into the enemy base, you can push through the lower hallways and make your way to the ramp room, hopefully avoiding enemy defenses on the catwalk above or from the room on the right. Next, players can simply drop down and make a beeline to the flag room, hopefully without getting caught by any defenders in the U-turn hidey hole. Players can grab the enemy flag and hustle out of the base via the one-way exit back to the upper level. Players can make a decision to go to the battlements or drop down. Assume they decide to drop down. Moving from the drop down towards the base exit, it could be possible that the bridge area is too hot, which leaves one option: jump into the water. The material of the water is quite murky, so it's very hard to see other players, but there is a viable path down there. A short network of underground caves, which does have the added risk of drowning, because staying underwater for too long does kill your health value. Once outside of the water, there is a spiral staircase which leads back to the player's base. From here, the players can go back to the ramp room and move towards the battlements for a successful flag capture. Now, what does this path look like in Team Fortress 2? Well, I can drop down for the battlements and push forward toward the enemy base. The first thing to note that's different is that there is no fall damage from the same height. Moving towards the bridge, the roof provides ample cover from opposing snipers. One thing to note, that once in the base, it doesn't say red base like it does in Team Fortress Classic. Again, an added benefit of tech and art direction. The materials of the red base scream out to the player that they are on the red side of the map, and vice versa if they're on the blue side of the map. Pushing forward to the ramp room, the player has easy visibility to the doorway they need to get to. Taking the staircase down and beelining it to the flag room, watching for defenses or other players. However, like I mentioned earlier, if things are too hot downstairs, an attacking player can backpedal out of the space. The flag, or in this case the intelligence, once taken, and the ideal flow is followed, players are led towards the same ramped exit, which goes back to the upper levels of the red base. The same deal, take the drop down, take the base exit, only to find that the bridge area is too hot. The choice that's left is to go into the water. In Team Fortress 2, the water has a bit more translucency to it, allowing one to see players in the water before diving in. And once in the water, the path is a lot more simplified, with large round passages leading to and from the red and blue bases. The amount of actual swimming is minimal, and the rest of the path in the tunnel is knee-deep water. A big difference compared to the layout of this section from Team Fortress Classic. Midway through the tunnels is a solid landing area, which provides a great place for a team to set up a defense in the tunnel area. Following the simplified tunnels, at the far end is a straight stairway. Again, this is another big change compared to Team Fortress Classic. The winding staircase is now gone. The staircase is now flat, but simplified with a simple switchback that puts players in the direct flow of the ramp room. The simplified network of tunnels and the staircase removes what I think is one of the more complex sections of 2 Fort from Team Fortress Classic, but still keeps the essence of the underwater path, but more streamlined for player flow. Once inside the base, the player has to go down to their basement to drop off the flag, not the battlements, which is the last major change in gameplay between Team Fortress Classic and Team Fortress 2 on 2 Fort. Not only do players have to use the ramp room, but players can also go back towards the branching path rooms and use a door that is on the wall to follow the ramps that go back to the basement, actually served as the exit for attacking players. So it gives 2 ways for players to drop off the flag or the intelligence to the basement of their base. Hopefully, a comment board does not start down below. But both iterations of 2 Fort have their design layouts tailored for different gameplay experiences. Be it the one-way elevator and the winding staircase of Team Fortress Classic, or the simplified water path of Team Fortress 2. Both games provide an ideal and balanced CTF gameplay experience. Is one better than the other? Well, maybe, if you count the improved visual direction of Team Fortress 2, which does help a lot of players to learn the layout faster and build a mental map of where they are and where to go next. But again, the way 2 Fort was made for Team Fortress Classic was based on the limitations of level design and art of the times. Despite that, that level still does a decent job at signage to guide the player in and out of either base. Either way, Team Fortress Classic or Team Fortress 2 both exemplify the 2 Fort design. That is a tried and true method of making a CTF style level to provide balanced gameplay for both sides. Let me know in the comments below which one you are a fan of, and if you have seen the 2 Fort concept applied to other multiplayer maps. On that note, be sure to like and subscribe. Like I said earlier, a lot of viewers show up, but they're not part of the Cool Kids Club, so hit that button to get new video updates. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Level Design Deep Dive. Until next time, cheers.